Welcome to Conquering the Comma. This presentation is designed to acquaint you with the rules of comma usage, including placement in compound sentences, after introductory elements, with dependent phrases and clauses, around non-essential elements, in a series, and with adjectives. This presentation will also cover methods for avoiding a common comma error, the comma splice. Let's get started. So what is a comma? A comma is a punctuation mark that indicates a pause is needed in a sentence. Commas help to clarify meaning for the reader. Many writers become frustrated with comma usage because they are unsure of where to place them in their sentences. This presentation is designed to demystify the placement and usage of commas. Clauses and phrases. A clause is a group of words that contains both a subject and a verb that complement each other. A phrase is a group of words that does not contain a subject or a verb that complement each other. Sentence structure and independent clauses. A complete sentence has at least two components, a subject and a verb. The subject and the verb must complete a thought to be considered an independent clause. The example, the couple dances, the subject is couple and the verb is dances. That makes it an independent clause. Sentence structure, compound sentences. A compound sentence is a sentence that contains two independent clauses joined by a coordinating conjunction. A conjunction joins words, phrases, and clauses together in a sentence. Conjunctions, remember the acronym FANBOYS, for, and, nor, but, or, yet, so. FANBOYS. The comma in a compound sentence is placed before the coordinating conjunction. Here's the example. Andy built a snowman, comma, and Jeff played with his dog. Andy built a snowman is an independent clause, and Jeff played with his dog is also an independent clause. They've been added together with the conjunction and. Where would you place the comma in the following sentence? Dan struggled with his homework, so his father helped him. The correct location is after homework, in front of so. Dependent clauses or phrases. A dependent clause contains a subject and a verb, but the clause cannot stand independently. Dependent clauses can often be identified by the use of dependent clause markers. Some of those markers are because, since, when, while, until, if, as, though, although, unless, after, before, once, whether. When a dependent clause is placed at the beginning of a sentence, place a comma between the independent clause and the dependent clause. The example, before he took his test, comma, Dan struggled with his homework, comma, so his father helped him. The conjunction is so, and the dependent clause is before he took the test. Before he took the test does not stand by itself as a sentence. Where would you place the comma in the following example? Because it was raining, we decided to go to the movies. I'll give you just a moment. If you decided to put it after raining before we, you would be correct. Because it was raining, comma, we decided to go to the movies. Because it was raining cannot stand on its own. Dependent clauses. When a dependent clause is located after an independent clause, do not place a comma between the two. An example, we decided to go to the movies because we were bored. The subject and the verb, we decided. The conjunction is because. Essential phrases and clauses. An essential phrase or clause is used to modify a noun. It adds information that is critical to the meaning of the sentence. Essential clauses are not set off by commas. Essential phrases and clauses are elements that do not have commas placed around them. The difference between an essential and a non-essential element: while commas should not be placed around essential phrases and clauses, they should be placed around non-essential phrases and clauses. So, the people who work in my office are loud. It's an essential phrase. Essential phrases or clauses are not set off by commas. The word that is almost always an indicator of an essential phrase or clause. The tiramisu that I had at Joe's was great. It's an essential phrase or clause. Non-essential phrases and clauses add extra information to a sentence. This information can be eliminated from the sentence without influencing the meaning of the sentence. Always place commas around non-essential phrases and clauses. The example: my brother, comma, who lives across town, comma, plans to throw a party. The non-essential phrase is who lives across town. The primary portion of the sentence is my brother plans to throw a party, the subject and the verb being brother and plans. Non-essential phrases and clauses. So here's another example illustrating the placement of non-essential phrases within a sentence. At the end of the sentence, the non-essential element should have a comma placed before it and a period after it, which often, but not always, indicates a non-essential phrase or a clause. Here's an example. Steve said, subject and verb, that he would propose to me on Valentine's Day, comma, which is my favorite holiday. The non-essential part is, which is my favorite holiday. Therefore, the comma goes after day, with a period at the end of the sentence. So let's test your comma skills. Would you place commas in the following sentences? If so, and where? I'll give you a moment and then we'll go through them. The first sentence is, I am planning a trip to Paris, which is one of the greatest cities in the world. The second is, the place that I would most like to see is the Eiffel Tower. And the third is, Pierre, who is one of my business contacts, will meet me at the airport. So the first example needs a comma after Paris to set off the non-essential phrase. So it would be, I am planning a trip to Paris, comma, which is one of the greatest cities in the world, that being the non-essential phrase. The second example requires no comma. The phrase that I would most like to see is essential to the meaning of the sentence. The sentence will not make sense without this essential phrase. The third example requires two commas, both before and after the non-essential phrase. The non-essential phrase is, who is one of my business contacts. So the first one would go between Pierre and who, and the second would go between contacts and will. This makes it clear without knowing the additional information about his identity. Commas in a series. So you place a comma in a sentence to divide items in a list. The commas will help you and the reader to avoid confusion. The comma before the conjunction is generally required, but it can be omitted if there is no possibility of confusion. So for that one, it'd be in front of the and when you have a series of items. So let's look at some example. And let's see what the difference means by putting the commas in. So So let's look at the first sentence. Last month, Alex dated Mary Ann, Lee, and Kim. How many people did Alex date? Okay, let's look at the next one. Last month, Alex dated Mary, Ann, Lee, and Kim. How many did he date this time? And the last one. Last month, Alex dated Mary Ann, Lee, and Kim. So how many women did Alex date? Well, in the first one, 2. The second one, 4, and 3 in the third. It's amazing what a difference the placement of commas can make in the determination of what you're reading. Consider the following. Commas should be placed in a series of words, phrases, or clauses. Let's place the commas in the following sentences. Martina brushed her hair, put on her pajamas, and went to bed. First comma goes between hair and put, and the next comma would go behind pajamas and in front of and went to bed. She fell asleep and dreamed that she was a princess. She kissed a frog and she rescued the prince, or her prince. So after she was a princess and she kissed a frog. Commas with adjectives. Use commas to separate adjectives that provide an equal description of a noun. The test, can you put and between the adjectives? Can they be described in reverse order? If yes, use a comma. So I have 3 examples. Let's look at these. Big blue house. First off, let's look at our list. Can you put and between big and blue? Well, you can. Can you just put them in reverse order? Blue big house? Probably wouldn't say that. So in this case, you wouldn't put a comma. 3 hungry kittens, same thing. Would you switch hungry and 3? Hungry 3 kittens? Doesn't sound right either. So again, no comma. The last one, a cranky bald man. You could also say a bald cranky man. And because of that, then you would use a comma between cranky and bald. Down to the end, we're looking at that common error we talked about, the comma splice. A comma splice is an error in which 2 independent clauses are joined by a comma. So here's an example. Dan struggled with his homework, comma, his father helped him. Well, there's 2 separate sentences there, so we can do it several ways. Here's your ways to correct it. First, you can insert a conjunction between the 2 independent clauses. So the conjunction in this case was so. Dan struggled with his homework, so his father helped him. Don't forget the comma though. The next one is you could simply create 2 sentences. Dan struggled with his homework, period. His father helped him, period. Your next option would be to insert a semicolon between the 2 independent clauses. Dan struggled with his homework. His father helped him, with a semicolon between the 2 sentences. So what did we discuss? We talked about the rules of comma usage, placement in compound sentences, introductory elements, dependent phrases and clauses, essential and non-essential elements, elements in a series, commas to separate adjectives, avoiding that pesky common comma error, the comma splice. So now that we finished this review lesson on commas, if you have any questions, make sure to ask your teacher.